Hi, everybody. It's Terry with Crafty Book Nerd here today to wish you a Merry Christmas and to talk about my top 10 books for 2023. So, before we do that, you know what time it is. Time for our quote of the day. Today's quote says, "Good books. They're like the world's most engaging people, all waiting to tell us stories, explain things we want to know, and describe great places we want to go." That is definitely how I feel about good books. And let me tell y'all, I had a great reading year this year, and I can't wait to share some of my top reads with you. First of all, let's look at a few statistics of my reading this year. The first is a pie chart showing the percentage of the genres that I read. And I compared this to last year's, and it's really funny because it's very close to last year's. Thriller still coming in at my top genre with 35% of the 113 books that I managed to read in 2023. And that's followed by fantasy at 13%. And not too far behind that is dystopian and sci fi books. And then we have mystery with 10.6, historical fiction, romance. We have a category called other, and those were just kind of didn't really fit in other genres, so I put them there. I did have one nonfiction I read this year, and I also was pleased that I was able to read a few middle grades. I enjoyed those. So let's look a little bit at my star ratings for 2023. Of the 113 books that I read, 5-star books, there were 22 of those, equaling 20%. There were 64 star books at 53%, 23 3-star books coming in at 20%, and only 7% of my books were a 2-star or less. So when you look at that, I had a great reading. I read some great books this year with all those 5 and 4-star reads. I managed to read 43,411 pages, and my average rating was 3.9. Before we get into my top 10, I want to talk about a few books that were all 5 stars because I did have 22, and I didn't want to talk about 22 of my books. So, what I did is I've got 4 honorable mentions, and then we'll talk about my top 10 of those 5-star reads. So, first, let's look at coming in at number 10 is Harlan Coben, I Will Find You. I have read a lot of Harlan Coben books, and I have enjoyed all of them. This one was no exception. It is a thriller. It is action packed. It will keep you guessing. It's full of surprises. It's about a dad um, who has a 3-year-old son, and he goes to prison, and he has to try to prove that he is not guilty of a crime that has been committed. And there are so many things intertwined in this story that I did not see coming. Highly recommend this one. Check it out. Coming in at Coming in at number 9 is Vengeful. This is the second book in the Villain series, and there's supposed to be more books coming out, but I haven't heard anything about those yet. And this is by V.E. Schwab. I enjoyed this second book more than I did the first one, which was Vicious. The struggle between Eli and Victor continues in this book. We meet some new characters that are something else. And we're also introduced to some new powers that are brought into the whole mix of everything. So this was a good one. Coming in at number Coming in at number 8 is the whole series of Crave. I had told y'all one of my goals this year was to finish this series, and I did. I managed to read all 6 books. I don't think any of them were under 500 pages. They were chunkers, but I love the whole series. This is considered to be YA. It is about vampires. There are parts of it that are spicy, but fun. It's about supernatural creatures. It's about a boarding school. We are Some of the themes include friendship and love. And like I said, I'm glad I'm done with the series. I enjoyed the whole series, but out of the 6 books, book 2, Crush, was my favorite. So if you've read this one, love to hear your thoughts. Coming in at number 7, All the Light We Cannot See. Whew, this was good. World War II, if you like historical fiction and you like World War II books, you have to check this one out. It's about two children. It's two parallel stories, two children, a girl who's in France and an orphan boy who is in Germany. The orphan boy is trying to escape the orphanage and the life that he has. And the girl in France is with her father, and they're trying to find safe places to be during the war. But during the course of the story, the boy from Germany and the girl from France, their lives collide. And some interesting thing happens. It was just really good. I did also watch the show. I can't remember now what work it's on, but it was a limited series, and I thought they did a good job, and it was good. All the light we cannot see was really good. Coming in at number 6, we have The Addict Child, another historical fiction, another book about children. In this book, we meet two children who are trapped in the same attic, but 90 years apart. Okay? There is a secret, and it relates to both of these children and what happened to them during their time in the attic. It is a story of family, love, betrayal, and most of all, a story of survival. And this is by Lola J. And whew, it was good. I really, really enjoyed it. Now we're getting down to the top 5. Now, when it got time to put these top 5 books in order, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, it was a little bit difficult because I probably enjoyed all 5 of these equally, so they could swap places easily in this countdown from 5 to 1. So let's go ahead and look at number 5. Number 5. Number 5. This is a memoir by Anthony Ray Hinton, and the title is The Sun Does Shine: How I Found Life and Freedom on Death Row. This story, I will think about this for a long time. It will stay with me. It is about a poor 29-year-old black male in Alabama who is accused of a crime and goes to prison and spends 30 years there for a crime he did not commit. It's his story of how he is on death row and how he sees different people come to death row. And he begins to realize that he's going to be there a while, and he can either get in a corner and pout about it, or he can make what his life has become worth something to other people. And that's what he chooses to do. Through the power of reading, he becomes a beacon of hope for all the other men, all the other people that are on death row. It is just such a powerful story. It tore at my heartstrings. There were things that happened in this book that just made me shake my head at the way we treat people, at the way, especially the way that black men were treated and in some places still are. So I'm telling you, if you don't read any other memoir in the next year, you have to read this The Sun Does Shine by Anthony Ray Hinton. So good. Coming in at number 4, no surprise. Coming in at number 4, no surprise here, Fourth Wing. Everybody's talking about Fourth Wing. Fourth Wing, amazing fantasy. It's a chunker to read. It's by Rebecca Yarros, and I absolutely loved it. I love anything with dragons. I'm a big Game of Thrones person. Of course, there's House of Dragons, but if there is a book with dragons, I'm going to read it. I don't even have to know what it's about. If it's got a dragon on the cover, I'm going to read it. I love dragon books. It's an enemies to friends to lovers story. The world in this book is just amazing. I'm going to tell you, this was a huge book. I think it's 400 or 500 pages. I was on page about 30 and got to the end of a chapter 3 or 4, I don't remember. And I got on Books A Million because I'm a Books A Million member. and I was ordering the second book. That's how much I loved it after only reading 29 pages. So if you are a fantasy person and you love anything fantasy and dragons, please add this one to your list. It was so good. And go ahead and get the next one, because what I did is I read this one, the next one came in, I read them back to back. So it stayed with me. So that was really good. And I just absolutely loved Fourth Wing. Coming in at number 3. Oh, another this one. I read this one. I think this was my first read for January of 2023. And I knew it was going to be in the top 10 when I finished it. I mean, I knew. I said, I don't know what else I'm going to read this year and what else is going to be really good, but this book is going in my top 10. And it's Mad Honey by Jodi Picoult and Jennifer Finley Bowen. Jodi Picoult's books always make me think. Just thinking about the morals, the things that you believe. She presents things in a way that I didn't see before, and it really makes you question what you believe. And I love that about her books. This one is twisty, it's thought provoking, it's suspenseful, it's about secrets, it's about a love story, it's about someone trying to start over. It is just packed full. And Jodi Picoult is another author I would love to read to zero. I have read so many of her books and I have loved them all. This book has a quote in it that I think I will remember for the rest of my life because it is such a powerful quote. And it says, "How similar does someone have to be to you before you remember to see them first as human?" Whew. Yeah. It's so good. Check it out. Coming in at number 2, Wayward. Number 2, Wayward, Amelia Hart, a debut book. I could not believe this was a debut. It does not read like a debut. She paints such a vivid picture of everything. I felt like I was there. This is another historical fiction. I read some really good ones this year. It's about magic. But the thing I loved about it is about 3 different women in 3 separate timelines. And I love stories that are set in different timelines and then seeing how they're all weaved together. So you've got one woman living in 2019, one in 1942, and one in 1619. And this story shows us how these 3 women through the years end up being connected to each other. And I absolutely loved it. I love the cover. It's a beautiful color and such a good book. And I have not checked yet to see if Amelia Hart is coming out with something else, but I can promise you I will be ordering it if she does because I loved it. And this was also another one of my favorite quotes from all the books I read this year. And this one says, "The connections between and among women are the most feared, the most problematic, and the most potentially transforming force on the planet." You know what that means, girls? It means when we get together as women, there is nothing we can't do. There is nothing that is impossible. Impossible is not in our category. I meant our vocabulary. When we get together, we are a force to be reckoned with. And with some of the things that are going on right now, we need to stand up for ourselves and for each other. So that's Wayward by Amelia Hart. So good. Absolutely loved it. And coming in at number 1 for 2023 is The Measure. This is a dystopian sci-fi book. But boy, did I love it, and I would love to see this one made into a series because it would be so good. So, like I said, it's dystopian. It's about 8 different people, and each of them has to make a choice. It's about a string that arrives in a box on their front porches, and the string means something. I'm not going to tell you what, but these 8 people, their lives end up being intertwined together. And it all has to do with a box that arrives on the front porch with a string in it. Loved, loved, loved this book by Nikki Erlich, The Measure. And the quote from this one is, "It's not the length of life, but the depth of life that's important. And there you have it, guys. My top 10 books for 2023, my statistics for 2023, and a little bit of stats about what I read. So, once again, Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy New Year. I'll be coming back in the next day or so to talk about what I read in December. And then I'm also going to talk about how I'm going to pick my books to read for 2024. So, if you've been with me, this is basically my 1 year anniversary on YouTube, and I'm excited about that. I'm almost to 400 subscribers. Yay. So, if you've been here since the beginning, thank you for staying with me. Thank you for sharing with your friends. If you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing. I talk about everything books and also do some crafting. So, with that said, everybody have a great end of 2023 and start getting those TBR shelves ready for 2024.